video because you want to know the difference between having expectations and having standards. So let's get into it. So for much of my life, I experienced so much disappointment because of unmet expectations that I had placed on people. I had placed expectations on people thinking that these were my standards that I was simply asserting and stating, but I wasn't. I was expecting things from people that I shouldn't have been expecting things from because their character, their temperance didn't show that they were able to meet these standards, but I did it anyway, thinking from an idealistic point of view, thinking that you're supposed to be like this, you're my partner, you're my family member, you're my friend, you're this, you're that, but failing to see them for who they really are. And because these failings happened and I internalized them as indictments to my character because I felt these expectations I had were relatively low compared to other people's expectations, other people's standards. And I felt like, but why are mine not being met? After all, you're supposed to love me. After all, you're supposed to care. After all, you're supposed to understand where I'm coming from. Are you not supposed to? But as an aside, I want to say that a lot of our communication as human beings in general is unspoken. We rely on chance. We rely on the good judgment of the people we're communicating with or not actually communicating with at all. Our actions or other things to speak for us rather than actually being plain in our communication and saying, this is what I want and this is what I don't want. It leaves so much room for ambiguity. It's open for interpretation. It's simply not clear communication. And when these expectations are not met, we tend to get frustrated. We tend to get annoyed. So back to the story. My frustration was brewing. I used to get so frustrated, and the only way I knew how to express myself without pushing them too far away was to be passive aggressive. And that's something I've learned from family members growing up and from movies, from our culture in general, that we tend to be more passive aggressive. And I don't know why we do that. Maybe it's because we feel like we don't want to cause a scene, we don't want to be upset, we don't want to be overtly upset and screaming and shouting, and maybe we find some nobility by being passive aggressive. But all the same, passive aggressiveness is not the way to communicate. You should definitely have those conversations and say, this is what made me feel uncomfortable, this is what I like, this is what I don't like, and how can we move on, together in unity. So what are expectations? Expectations are what you've made up in your mind, how others are supposed to behave, how others are supposed to be. And that's towards yourself, and that's towards themselves, or towards anything else external to themselves. So for example, their children, how they're supposed to act in business, how they're supposed to be as a pastor, how they're supposed to be as a Christian. It's a must fulfill. It's supposed to be an obligation for them to do what you think is right. So the funny thing is, like I mentioned before, is that we have these expectations of people, but we never actually communicate these expectations with them. We just assume. That's the magic word. We just assume that they know it because it's obvious, it's blatant, it's right before you. How can you not know it? But we haven't got the same brain. We're not telepathic. It's not something that's common knowledge. You have to express how you feel. And that's the problem with unspoken expectation. We have all these, expectations, and we mix it with emotion, and we get so frustrated when we don't have our needs met because it's obvious. If you love me, you're supposed to see it. If you care for me, you're supposed to see it. But not everybody thinks like you. Not everyone sees the things the same way that you see things. So we're only setting ourselves up for failure when we go around expecting things from people. And I'll go as far as to say expecting things from ourselves. But rather we should have standards. So right now I'm in a place in my life where I have low expectations of people and I have high standards for myself and high standards for what I want to be in my life, what I feel is good for me in my life, because I'm elevating by the grace of God. And there's certain things I will accept and there's certain things I will not accept. And these are essentially boundaries and non-negotiables. So it's boundaries, standards, non-negotiables are also anonymous to me anyway. We have to understand that as human beings, we disappoint. So going around expecting people to do things the way you want them to do it, how you want them to do it, is only setting yourself up for failure. Is only setting you up to be miserable, to be frustrated. And even if you do communicate these things to them, which we will talk about later on, we have to give room for human error, give room for grace, because we're not perfect. You can only control yourself. You can't control other people by putting expectation. This is what I expect you to do. You're supposed to do this. You're supposed to do that. You have to understand we can't control our man. We can't control our boyfriend. We can't control our mother. We can't control Sandra down the road. We can't control this person or that person. We can only control what we have, and that's ourselves. So the sister to unspoken expectations is unrealistic expectations. How many of us have unrealistic expectations of people which we know don't have the characteristics, they don't have the traits, they don't have the capabilities, the natural propensities to do the things that we want them to do, but we're just living in this idealistic world, hoping and praying that they will change. I thought I was having standards by having expectations. I confused the two, and that's what a lot of people pleasers seem to have. They don't know what their standards are. They don't know what they don't know what expectations are. They don't know the difference between the two. They merge the two, thinking that it's one, but they're completely different things. I thought my standards were actual standards. They weren't standards. They were expectations that I was trying to impose. Whereas I was thinking I was just trying to assert myself and say, this is what I want. But the more I didn't see it, the more I tried to assert it and assert it. And when it wasn't forthcoming, I became so frustrated and annoyed. After all, I'm expressing myself. Why am I not getting what I want? But the difference was that if I had standards, I would have said, you're not meeting my standards, I'm out of here because I deserve better. But because I didn't have that knowledge, I just thought, let me keep trying, let me keep trying, let me keep going. I couldn't accept. And that's another problem that I find amongst a lot of people in general, but especially those with people pleasing tendencies, that they find it very hard to just accept things and accept things quickly. They want to keep trying different things just in case they find the answer, when deep down they know the answer is no, but they just can't accept no because they don't want to give up on this, because this is just too good. They don't want to let it go. They're operating from a place of scarcity. They feel like what they have right now is everything that they're ever going to have. This is the best they're going to have. And if they let this go now, if they let this relationship go, if they let this friendship go, if they let this opportunity leave, they're never going to get anything better. Oh my gosh, I can't. So I have to just keep on going, keep on going, keep on going. I feel like I would love to make a video on acceptance and accepting things, because I've learned some tricks along the way, how just to accept things and accept things quickly. So I think that's going to be next week's video. If that's something you'd be interested in, please leave me a comments down below and let me know that that will be something you're interested in, and I'll make the video for you guys next week or in the next couple. Not good enough to just have standards. You must communicate these standards to your partner, to your friend, to whoever you're in relationship with as soon as possible. And whenever, for whatever reason, your standards change because you are elevating, because you want more in life, or you no longer stand by the standards that you stood by before, you must communicate these things so no one is left in the dark. Either you're frustrated because you're not getting what you want, because you're thinking, well, I'm changing, my actions should speak for me. No, your actions shouldn't speak for you, you should speak for you. And your friend is frustrated because, why are you changing? Why? What's going on? And I think there's a very big need for us to be communicative and speak and talk. But generally, as recovering people pleasers, we find it very uncomfortable to approach these kind of conversations because it's just too confrontational, it's just too emotional. There's a high potential of being abandoned because of this type of discussion. Standards are still expectation, but with the understanding that I'm not trying to impose my will, I'm not trying to manipulate you to do things that I want you to do. I'm open. It's not a do or die situation. If you don't meet my standards, that's okay. I'm simply just communicating what I want. This is where I begin. This is where I end. And if you want to be in a relationship with me in whatever capacity, this is what you have to do. X, Y, and Z. There's no two ways about it. There's no negotiables about it. I'm not discounting my price for you. I'm not changing for you. This is what I want. So how I see it is that you should only have these expectations of people when you have had some sort of discussion with them. When you had a discussion, you had an agreement that yes, you are now permitted to hold these expectations over me because I have agreed to be held by these expectations. So a husband having an expectation that his wife should be cooking and cleaning and taking care of the house and stuff like that, without him first discussing that with his wife, is only setting him up for failure. It's only making him more frustrated when she doesn't do it. It's only making him feel less loved and less taken care of because he hasn't communicated that you taking care of the house, you taking care of the kids makes me feel more of a man, makes me feel more loved. But then he's brewing with anger and he's not communicating with her. And on the flip side, if she as a wife is with her husband and then he comes back late every He comes back home 12 a.m. in the morning. After work, he goes to drink with his friends and he's staying with other female friends. And you're annoyed by that, but you don't say anything. You're just waiting that for him to change because it's obvious that it's not supposed to be like that in a marriage by your own expectations. But that's not communicated with him. Him doing that over and over again and you not saying anything is only making you more and more upset. You're ruminating in pain, you're ruminating in frustration, but you're not yet communicating with that with him. Another way is, if not having a verbal conversation or verbal dialogue, it's agreeing. It's you agreeing by doing something. So by this I mean, like, you as a woman, you choose to be a mother, you choose to have the baby, you choose to be a married woman. So because the very virtue of you choosing to be a mother, choosing to be a wife, that allows me to have certain expectations of you. So as a mother, it's permissible for me to expect you to have some sort, or to display some sort of affection towards your child. And if it's not there, I'll be wondering, okay, that's a bit strange. Likewise, with a married woman, I feel like it's permissible for me to expect you not to sleep around. It's permissible for me to not to see you with another man because you are now a married woman. It's not written anywhere, it's not spoken anywhere. It's an unspoken expectation that you're not supposed to do these things. Another example is taking your child to childcare. There's nowhere written that I'm going to protect your child from harm and danger and evil and all of these things. It's an unspoken, unwritten expectation that once I give you my child to look after, you have now the parental responsibility, so to speak, to look after the child, to keep the child safe. Or are you going to give the child food? Are you going to give the child lunch? And if you're going to change the child's nappy, those things are discussed and we sign a contract to it. But there's nowhere do we sign a contract that you keep the child safe, you keep the child from danger and harm. It's a given, it's an unspoken, unwritten expectation that I can have because you have now accepted the role of childcare. Don't have to express and say, okay, now we're having a discussion that now you're not supposed to do these things, or yes, you're supposed to do these things. But by the very virtue of you taking on this role, you then assume the responsibility, the assumptions that come with the role. So what are the benefits of having standards? One is that you speak from a place of power. You speak from a place of empowerment. You're not looking and trying to find ways to impose yourself. You stand from a place of power and confidence. This is my standards. This is where I start. This is where I end. Take it or leave it. There's no two ways about it. This is what is me. And you're not trying to, again, arm wrestle someone to do something that you want them to do. You're strong in your confidence. You're confident to say, oh, you're failing to meet my standard. Okay, that's fine. I accept it. That's fine. But there are consequences to this action that I have every right to enforce because this is my standard that you have unfortunately violated. A lot of people struggle to accept things. They struggle to just accept the inevitable. They struggle to accept what's obvious to them because they find that they can change people, they can please their way and impress them into changing. And the more they try, they feel like they're getting closer, but they realize that it's not working. But they've come this far and they don't want to move, they don't want to turn back because it's embarrassing and it's just a waste of their time inevitably. But they're just the pride of it, the fear of it, the worry of what if I make a mistake, what if I've put in all this effort in and if I turn back now. But at the end of the day, it's just a bad investment. You just have to accept things. I'm definitely going to do a video on acceptance in the next week or in the next coming weeks. When you have expectations, you speak from a place of power. It comes from a place of security, a place of self-love, self-acceptance, self-appreciation and self-confidence. It means that you've taken the time to think about what you actually want, what you actually need for your life, for the vision of your life, what you want, what you like, what's supportive of you, what's healthy, what's good for you in the relationships. And so anyone coming to you to try to convince you to lower your standards, you should completely disregard what they have to say because you know what you want, because you've taken the time and invested the time to date yourself to know, okay, this is what I want, this is what I need, this is what is beneficial for me. So you're not trying to project what you want on others. You're simply saying, okay, I accept you. If you don't want to do this, that's absolutely fine. No love lost. This mindset of I don't necessarily need you. I'm not holding on to you. I'm holding on to hope that you will change. I'm holding on to hope that things will get better. You are able to detach. You'll have an abundance mindset. If this one person or this group of people don't accept me, that's okay. There's 7 billion people around the world. I'm sure at least 2 of them will like me. I'm sure 2 of them will raise and meet my standards. So we have to hold on to hope. We must think bigger and not just think so small and narrow-minded that if this person doesn't change, I need this person to be in relationship with me, so I'm going to try to impose my standards, my will on them for them to change. It just doesn't work. Having standards helps you to make decisions very quickly and live a more simple life. You're not ruminating over, oh my gosh, this person offended me, this person didn't meet my standard, how can this person do it? No, you're very clear cut. There's no emotions involved here. This is very plain and simple. A, B, and C. This is what I require. You fell short. Okay, these are the consequences. You're not ruminating. You're not getting upset. There's no drama involved. It's very clear cut. It's like a friend who has fallen below your standard of what a friend should be in your life, and you've spoken to her about it, or him or her about it, and things are not changing and it's hurting you, and you have a choice to make, and the choice is that you have to relegate down to an acquaintance, or you have to relegate this boyfriend down to a friend or to a stranger, a familiar stranger, because you can't have that kind of energy around you, because you know this is my standard of living and they have fallen below it. And I don't have to be upset about it. I don't have to write it on Facebook and tell everyone, look what happened. It's very clear cut, very simple. You detach and you love and you move on with your life with no drama, with no frustration. Again, I want to emphasize then there must be room for our humanity. Not everyone is perfect. For you to expect that your friend, boyfriend, business partner will do everything the way you want them to do it, when you want them to do it, again, it's setting yourself up for failure. We have to understand that no one is perfect, but there are certain things that you can be flexible around, and there are certain things that you're just not going to be flexible around. And you have to know that for yourself. And again, plan. Things come with planning. You don't just do things in a moment, because emotion takes over, and that's why we want to use our minds and not our hearts and emotions to make decisions such as who to be in relationship with. Just the last thought: a relationship, a business relationship, a friendship, a romantic relationship, we should shoot for the stars, but we must remember we need a rocket ship to get there, and they are expensive. And that's to say that you want all these things, and it's fine, you can have all these things, but you must be able to match what you want, because the chances are that the things you're looking for in a particular person, they're also looking for those things in another person too. So we must match what we want. The law of attraction says that we attract what we are, not what we want. So we must have that abundance mindset. We must have that loving mindset. We must have those standards, the standards that we expect and what we want from people. We set for a person that should be in our life, or what the kind of person we want to date, or the kind of person we want to be friends with. We must also reflect those things. We must not be deficient in those areas. So I hope you guys have been blessed. This video again has been long, but I hope it has blessed you. You leave your comments, leave your thoughts and suggestions down in the comments below. Let's have a conversation. Let me know who's in my community. So remember, have standards and not expectations.